Welcome to the Popish Plot. I'm Mike.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Nate.
And today we are talking about... Jess?
Latin words.
That's right. It's the novella Ad Limina by Jones-Kellett of Catholic Answers.
Oh, yes.
Or, as the book was originally published, Cyril Jones-Kellett. Which is a much more authory name.
Seriously, I mean, he could skip the middle name, perhaps.
Oh, no, it was hyphenated.
Oh.
So I presume that he just normally has a double-barreled last name and goes single barrel just for the convenience of being on radio.
Oh, yeah, it could be.
Yeah. So, subtitled Catholics, a novella of Catholics in Space. Now, this is part of our ongoing series of bringing you books by non-saints. Now, it's not that we don't have great faith that Cy will eventually make it, but, as we've discussed many times, the first criterion to be a canonized saint is what?
To be dead.
Good.
And he is, praise God, still alive.
Very much alive.
And doing a fantastic job over there at Catholic Answers.
Yes.
But not dead, not a saint.
Nope.
What I really liked about this book is it hit a sweet spot. I was raised as a science fiction fan.
All right.
I was also raised as a Catholic.
Okay.
Now, throughout my youth, I was a really, really bad Catholic.
Yeah.
So I didn't think that the two things could have anything to do with each other. But again, Catholicism, the word Catholic means according to the whole. Mm-hmm. So there is nothing that escapes the faith. And that means that when man goes into space, his religion will go with him.
Yeah.
Now,
Catholics on the moon.
That's such a big diocese.
well, again, as we've already discussed, at present, until they have their own bishop on the moon, they are under the authority of the Bishop of Orlando, because all the flights leave from Cape Canaveral, which is in his diocese. But, there's already been two very fascinating incidents. One, back in 1969, when Apollo 11 landed on the moon, Buzz Aldrin took Presbyterian communion on the moon. Which, again, he meant well. It was communion, it just wasn't the Eucharist.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we've recently learned that current astronaut Mike Hopkins on the space station, a couple years ago when he did his first stint on the space station, he took Jesus with him. He had a number of consecrated hosts that he took up in a pyx, and, he received communion, not every Sunday, but throughout his 6-month stay on the space station, on the International Space Station.
Nice.
But when man goes out to the stars, if he ever does, the faith will go with him. And so, Ad Limina is, Latin words, is a novel about the first native-born bishop of Mars and his Ad Limina visit back to the Earth.
Wow.
Now, an Ad Limina visit is every 5 years, a bishop is supposed to, sometimes it gets bent a little bit the time, supposed to go and visit the Pope and give a report on the state of his diocese and visit the tombs of the apostles Peter and Paul, two of the pillars upon which the church is built. And that's what the Ad Limina means. You go to the threshold of Peter and Paul. Yeah. Now, this guy in the book is the Bishop of Mars, so it's been more than 5 years. But the Pope, at the time, finally says, it's time for you to come and make the visit. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the interesting thing. In this future, Catholics are regarded as a hate group.
Yes, which is why if I was not reading this for this talk, I would have stopped reading it on page 2.
So, it's because Catholics don't approve of things like polygamous marriage, same-sex marriage.
In this book, a lot of, genetically altering people and,
putting human brains into bonobos, which is like a chimpanzee, but with a more fun name. Mm-hmm.
Bonobo. I'm just making things up as I go because I haven't read this book. So,
well, again, we have several themes going here. One is we want to read books by non-saints, including scratching his way out of his tomb, Thomas à Kempis, and still living Jones-Kellett. Also, books that Nate has not read.
They like doing this to me. They like putting me on stage to give a book report on a book that I've only had a chance to look at the outside of.
Okay, all right. For The Imitation of Christ, I got you your own copy approximately 16 years ago. That one's on you.
Fair.
It's not like this one that I started reading Sunday so that I could, have it ready for Tuesday filming.
And in fairness, you did borrow it from him like 2 weeks ago, so there was a whole week in there where I could have gone and read it, but I just rarely get time to sit down and read anymore.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Sure. So, Jess, you don't think that this future of low-level persecution is probable?
I just simply, most of the time, anyone who writes, about this type of stuff is going to be one of those people who are kind of crazy conspiracy theories. Modern American Catholics are the most persecuted people ever throughout all time. And it's sort of like, so I read that and went, oh, but I liked him so much. Please say he's not one of those crazy ones that have gone off the deep end.
But throughout the course of the book, Cy shows that he's definitely not.
Yes.
Because the universe in which this book takes place is poised on the brink of war. Solar system-wide war between two forces. One, the dominant philosophy of the new progressivists, and the reactionary forces of the new fascists, who are essentially space Nazis, but without the racism.
Yeah, I mean...
They just believe in the will to power, but without any of the, Vulcan blood stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they had pretty much the same symbolism and everything.
Yeah.
It was just,
Yeah.
a multiracial Nazis. It was kind of weird on that part, but,
It's totally weird, but...
But, then the fatherland is just Earth, so...
Yeah. Or, the asteroid series. Sorry, dwarf planet series. Yeah.
Dwarf planets.
We all know Pluto's a real planet.
It tries so hard.
But throughout his voyage, the bishop, because Catholics are a low-level persecuted minority, they're not allowed to use the official travel ways, but they are allowed to travel through, well-known pirate services.
Yeah, I mean, it's at the level of essentially, like, third-class passage versus, front of the...
So he's riding in steerage.
Well, except it's a whole different ship, but it's run by a known company that calls itself the Scoundrel Line.
Ah.
Yes.
So they're operating...
That's the one that's kind of the cruise line I want to go on.
They're your kind of people.
Yeah.
So it's basically an open secret. So it's not that Catholics aren't allowed to travel, it's just they've got to do so in a more cumbersome way.
Yes, there's not a direct flight. You got to stop off at the moon and take a transfer.
I'm just saying this Scoundrel Line sounds. I mean, it sounds like it's at least being upfront about the nature of the people that run it.
And as we encountered, they provide pretty good customer service, all things considered. And there's all the fun things. There's ramjets and there's space travel and AI and robots and drugs and genetic engineering. It's a fun and terrifying future. But
there's a holodeck.
There is a holodeck, and it's very addicting. Oh, poor Reg.
As holodecks would be.
Poor Reg. Poor Reg. But the bishop is confronted with a choice. It's a choice that every single one of us faces. When our blessed Lord was brought before the crowds in Jerusalem, also presented was a man named Barabbas. Now, some manuscripts give this man's first name. His name was Jesus Barabbas.
It's probably a common name. Yeah.
It was. Just as Joshua was a common name today.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Barabbas means son of the Father. So Israel had the choice between two Jesus, sons of the Father. The man of violence, the revolutionary, or the Prince of Peace. Now, they chose the man of violence. The Savior is the Prince of Peace. In the same way, the bishop is confronted with a group of Catholics known as the cohort, seemingly modeled on the Legionaries of Christ, and also that also fun group Church Militant.
Oh,
just the
That old chestnut.
We are the only real Catholics, and whatever we do is thus fine. But the bishop is confronted with, what do I do? Do I try to... Because he's utterly repulsed by so many of the things that the new progressivists do, especially, trying to show man's dominance over the human body by, genetically engineering people and doing, unconscionable experiments on children. But what is the way to oppose this? To stand up and you join the new fascists in violence? Or the way of Jesus Christ, the suffering servant, which means to love your enemies and thus try to coax them into repentance instead of just kill them. And it's a problem that we all face today, as we see political parties that don't align with Catholic teaching, as we see, unfortunately, political violence becoming more and more an acceptable part of American politics. How do we respond? Do we join in with these things, or do we resist? Clearly, we should resist, and we should resist the way that Christians always have. First and foremost, with charity. Even for the people who are most opposed to us. With wanting what is best for them and loving them, serving them the best that we can. Plus, spaceships.
Spaceships.
Yeah. Spaceships and Latin words that just can't pronounce. What's not to love?
I'm sold.
Not enough to read it, but still sold.
I'll read it eventually. I'll add it to my TBR.
There you go.
It'll be on his list. Forever.
My own queue of books grows longer by the month. As the books get added more quickly than they get read. So, Ad Limina is great on multiple levels. One, it shows us, as science fiction always does, it's really about the present. Stories set in the future are always about what's happening now. But
now?
Essentially now. It was written in 2010 and 2013.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So close enough to now. But also, it does serve as a good reminder. Sometimes, even when we don't belong to that hated minority that you pointed out, those really panicky people who think that we have it the worst, those thoughts are tempting for all of us. We think, Christendom's gone. Guys, Fulton Sheen was talking about that decades before any of us were born, that it was already gone. And we just think, how could we... the world's going to heck in a handbasket. It's all just awful. But we forget that, and I forget if I'm paraphrasing Belloc or Chesterton here, but the church is a perpetually defeated thing that always emerges victorious. Mm. We always lose. And yet, we're still here. I'm reminded of a great story that Bishop Barron tells about the late Cardinal George.
Okay.
Where he was in Rome for the election of a pope or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was when Benedict XVI was elected.
Okay.
And so he's there, and he just looks out over the city, and he smirks because he's looking out at the some of the ruins of of ancient Rome. Mm-hmm. He's like, I just helped elect a successor of Peter. Where are the successors of Caesar? So even when we go out into the stars, where most people think that, there's that weird ahistorical assumption in science fiction that as we go out into space, religion will simply disappear.
Which is ridiculous, because when we colonize the moon, we'll be living in places all named after Jesuits.
Exactly. Well, that's a discussion for another time.
It was old-timey Jesuits.
The good Jesuits. But that when man goes out into space, the faith will go with him. And one day, when Elon Musk colonizes Mars, eventually there will be a Catholic bishop there. It'll be fantastic. In the year 3000, if the world perdures, if the second coming hasn't happened, there will still be a successor of Peter.
And if it did happen before then we probably could all hang out on Mars all we wanted to anyway.
Boom. With our post-resurrection bodies?
Yeah.
Well, plus it'll be the new Mars, so who knows what it'll be like. It might be lush.
Mm-hmm. Unless
perhaps that's where the Lake of Beer is.
We'll be hanging out with St. Bridget at the Lake of Beer on Mars. It'll be awesome. It's in the bowl of Olympus Mons.
Yeah. It's huge.
So,
All that time they were wondering if there was water on Mars. Maybe there's just beer.
Well, there is water, and it's all used for brewing. Ad Limina by Jones-Kellett or Cyril Jones-Kellett. It's a fantastic read. And in 6 or 7 months, after Nate finishes this copy, we'll be happy to loan it to you, too.
Well, only if they live nearby.
U.S. folks only, since we've discussed the fact that we don't yet have a trebuchet to send the book to any Canadian viewers. So, comment below with the most exotic place that you think will have a bishop in the next 200 years.
Or, if you've read other sci-fi that references Catholicism, what the book was. Or, as I only know of one that vaguely does, what's your favorite part about the litany against nuclear war?
The Canticle of Leibowitz?
Yes. And while you're down there, hit the subscribe, the bell next to it to get notified when a new episode comes out. And make sure to give this episode a like, because why not? And until next time, remember to live your faith.
Love your faith.
And share that love.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, but we are talking about
I don't have a
Latin words.
I'll say the title.
No, I'm just going to call it Latin words.
Awesome.
Come on. That's not even like a hard one.
A Lumina. It's about a car.
We're talking about a Chevy Lumina today.
We're talking about a mid-sized sedan from Chevy between the years of like 1986 and 1998.